Hello, super fans. It's time for one of the better segments on PTL. It's the fantasy segment where we're going to talk about picking the best fantasy players. And before we get into this, we want to make sure that you guys know that as we're moving into the new season, or the new split with best of twos and best of threes, there's two formats to go for. One format is simply the first 2 games per series of each player, which is equivalent between NA and EU. The other one is the best game per series from each player, which will bias you towards NA, as you're probably going to have, on average, a half more game per series. So keep that in mind if you're playing in that sort of regard when we start ranking these players. If you're playing best game, NA is a bit higher. But you know what? It's time to live everyone's fantasies. And in my world, that's bringing the wonderful, the amazing, the awesome optimal Tom Searfoss onto the show to talk to us about PTL fantasy.
Yeah, I figured.
What it do?
I figured I'd come on and help you guys at home here because the only number Freak knows in fantasy is first place.
Exactly. So we need to get more people up there.
That's true.
All right. So what do you have for us today? What's on the docket for fantasy analysis?
Well, first off, we took a look at a lot of players, all the active players in the LCS currently, and that's a lot of information. We have their numbers going back all the way to 2014 when Fantasy LCS started. So we took a look at all of their averages and put them together, and we're basically able to give you a great prediction of how they're going to perform in summer 2016.
Okay, so what is this prediction? What goes into it?
Well, the biggest thing that you really want to kind of learn to understand is the VOR, which is known as the value over replacement. Now, it's a little bit of information, so bear with me for a second. It basically judges how much better somebody is going to be than your last available draft pick in that round. So that way, when you're going through your draft, you get the best picks fastest.
So, for example, if Shifter is almost as good as Bjergsen, why first pick him? Why not go for someone like Huni, who's actually much better than other top laners?
Exactly.
Okay.
So one of the good examples is actually Vizicachi from Unicorns of Love, their top laner. Pretty solid top laner, right? Mm-hmm. But his VOR is actually going to be 0. He's the baseline for top laners. You look at somebody like Huni, who's had fantastic performances, and his VOR is off the charts.
Okay, so what are the top laners then?
So the top laners, you gotta obviously go for Huni. Impact on Cloud9 and Odwamne on H2K. Huni has actually the best VOR in the league, so he's leaps and bounds above all the rest of the top laners.
So he's the literal just like best first pick,
He's
period.
probably the best first pick in the entire draft.
All right, there you go. So junglers, give me that one.
So in the jungle, it's a little bit different here. Trick, Reignover are the top 2. A lot of people kind of expected that at home. But the third top jungler is actually Santorin. Previously on TSM, he didn't have the best performance altogether, but his fantasy points are off the chart because he didn't really die.
Right, no deaths, like 11 assists per game, ends up getting a lot of points that way. So under the radar, but hey, Santorin's pretty great. How about mid laners?
Well, mid laners, we actually have a little bit of discrepancy, but not really a lot. The biggest surprise is Ninja being up at the top. He didn't have a lot of games in the LCS in previous splits, but his numbers were off the chart. But right below him are Fevvin and Perks. But the biggest thing you gotta know about mid lane is the VOR spread is super close together. So even though you don't get Ninja, you're not really gonna be upset about getting Bjergsen.
Right, and he's not even on the list for the top 3 is the funny thing. So mid laners probably should be going later on in the draft than overall. Keep that in mind. I know I see like almost everyone first pick these guys. Actually, mathematically, not the right choice to go for. So give me 80 carries.
So 80 carries, that's another role that a lot of people are going to be picking up early on in the draft, and their VORs fluctuates a little bit more than the mid laners. Although the biggest surprise is going to be not Reckless and not Double Lift at the top, but Steelback actually, who's now on Roccat, has outperformed them almost double when you look at the VOR.
Yeah, I mean, he like hard carried Unicorns of Love last split, so big numbers on him, and honestly did okay in Fnatic the year before. So, all right, Steelback's really big. Give me supports.
All right, so supports, there's not a lot of surprise in there. Your top 3 supports from last split are pretty much your top 3 fantasy supports. That means Adrian on Immortals, Yellowstar back on Fnatic, and Hybrid actually over on Origin now are 3 of the top supports you want to look at.
And you think Hybrid's going to keep doing as well as he did on G2, which he probably will. Origin's a good team, then those are your top picks right there. All right, so fantasy points per game above people that are going to be in that same role. So big things there. Keep track of what he's telling you. He's a smart man, and we'll see you on the Fantasy LCS Rift. Good luck with your seasons.